Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrell, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by ACE the HR Exam and Upskill HR. These are two courses that we offer for certification prep and recertification for HR leaders. And you can learn more about these courses over at Workology.com. Today, I'm excited because we're diving into a topic that is reshaping the very foundation of our work in HR, and that is how artificial intelligence is transforming HR and HR tech. If you've been feeling like the pace of change is hitting warp speed, you are not alone. AI is not just some shiny new tool. It is rewiring how we source talent, personalize the employee experience, streamline operations, and make data-driven decisions that used to take days or even weeks. The best part is the HR leaders are finally stepping into the transformation and driver's seat of this transformation. In this episode, we're breaking down what AI really means for HR, the opportunities, the limitations, and the practical ways teams are using it right now to work smarter, not harder. Whether you're experimenting with new tech, building your AR strategy, or just trying to keep up, this conversation will help you navigate what is next. I know it's a lot to digest and it can be confusing, and that is exactly why I invited our guest to join us today. Before I introduce our guest, I do want to hear from you. Please comment the word podcast over our pinned post on Instagram. It's at Workology Blog. You can ask comments, leave questions, comments, and make future suggestions for our guests. I do want to hear from you. Today's guest is Martin Jackson, Future Experiences and Innovation Manager at Insights, a leading people development company dedicated to helping individuals and teams understand themselves and one another to drive greater impact. With a strong background in strategy and product innovation, Martin brings a unique blend of creativity and rigor to his role, always grounded in agile principles, stewardship, and a deep respect for quantitative and qualitative research. Now, at Insights, Martin develops early concepts and market opportunities into scalable solutions. He heads a cross-functional team across product, technology, and marketing and commercial functions. And he has strengthened the organization's approach to new product development by building frameworks and processes that turn market insights into successful launches. He's guided by a belief that sustainable innovation comes from serving both the business goals and people's potential. Martin is committed to building tools and experiences that empower individuals while strengthening team cohesion. His thoughtful approach makes him a sought-after voice in conversations around the future of work, leadership development, and the intersection of psychology and technology. Martin, I'm so excited. Welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Jess. That's a really serious intro to live up to.
I know, and I think it's going to be great. And I love psychology and technology and the intersection of human resources. So let's go ahead and talk about AI. I feel like we should start things off hard and strong. New tech, particularly AI, is reshaping every part of how we work right now, especially HR and HR tech. From your vantage point, what's the biggest shift HR leaders need to understand as they navigate this moment?
I think it's shifting the goalposts. So for years, the goal for any kind of tech integration was efficiency. We wanted to speed things up. We wanted to streamline things. We wanted to get a really quick answer in your hands as fast as possible to whatever question it was that you're asking. But now the value and the expectation is changing as AI changes the game. We're seeing technology now that helps people explore problems and helps them understand them better. It helps them communicate more effectively with each other whilst they're at work. And you can see why this shift in thinking really matters when you look at the data that HR leaders use. So tech satisfaction as a whole and HR tech satisfaction specifically is dropping. Teams don't feel that they have got the impact that they've actually paid for. So if the tools don't match up to the way in which people think or how they communicate or how they're making their decisions day to day, those tools will never land. The tools have got to be seen as an enabler, not a hindrance. And there's an opportunity now with AI to use that to support that really human side of work. We shouldn't be abdicating judgment to it at all. I don't advocate for that whatsoever. We should be sharpening it up. We're not automating interactions. We should always be trying to enhance them. And we're starting to see personalization and personal preferences being built into people's workflows, where it really can make a difference. So Anthropic are talking about it with Claude and character training for personal style adaptations when they use the AI itself. Meta are working on a personalized assistant, and Google are doing it with DeepMind. So the really, really big guns are looking at this really, really seriously. So the shift for HR leaders that they need to understand really will be this. The win isn't faster, harder, more productive tech. It's tech that makes people better at the parts of work that only the people can do. The connections, the awareness, the communication elements. We get that right, and the tools no longer feel like they're in the way. People want to use them. It feels like actual support. And that's the direction that I think the HR tech tool should be going, or at least that I hope they should be going.
I like this perspective, and I feel like it's different than what we've seen in the major news media. And it can help enhance the human experience, which is, I think, what we all want. We want a more human workplace where employees and leaders and HR connects more together to drive productivity and profitability.
Oh, absolutely. There's Cara in my team. She gave me this talking point to always remember. Think about it as an augmentation. It's not a replacement of, it's a support of. And I think she's completely right.
So AI is powerful. We've established that. And you've been talking about this, it still struggles with nuances, like maybe human behavior or the interpersonal dynamics, creativity, and innovation. What do you see the biggest risks if HR doesn't intentionally protect these human elements?
So yeah, that's where HR is at its strongest. HR should be there to keep the focus on people, on clarity around those people, on decisions that are made for those people and how it lands in real terms. So when we apply that person at the center of the approach, person at the center of the process, that sort of framing to any kind of AI instance, that's when it becomes really useful. It sharpens our thinking instead of blunting it up. If HR isn't protecting the person in the process, nobody else will whatsoever. And like we said, AI is really impressive, but it's still emotionally clunky and clumsy. It doesn't have intuition. It doesn't have the nuance. It can't read a room. It can't spot tension. It can't tell when somebody's holding back or when they're absolutely about to lose it. So if we lean on it without safeguarding those kind of things, we lose any true human connection. The behavioral intelligence could help make work out. We said for years previously that tech is built around automation. It made everything smoother and simpler. But with those advances, it also pushed people and it kind of took people a step away from their own judgment calls. I've seen really, really smart people second-guess decisions that they used to make instinctively on the snap. And it's because they've started to rely more and more on AI tools now for their own day-to-day thinking, just offloading those simpler parts of the day that stack up. Again, it's the processes that we put in place. The tech has made things so much simpler and so much easier. Sometimes those elements of friction that we really need to stay sharp, we start to lose. And when we lose those, meaning and implication kind of leaks away. More speed, more scale, more, but often less understanding. And that shift that we're looking towards now, where AI can support us, that's encouraging. Tech that supports, tech that doesn't replace. Tools that don't just do a job, they're there to help you think. Tools that help prompt reflection. That's a really good point, actually. Tools to help in terms of thinking about reflection. I build that into the AI prompts I use every day. So when I speak to GPT, I ask it to help me think harder and better about the problems I'm asking it. It's a godsend one-liner for me. The number of times it's helped me really think in a different way about a different problem. It's always a good bet to ask a better question because better questions give you better outcomes. And that's the real job for this new technology, not to take people out of the process, but to get better outcomes.
I like that. Another thing that we're seeing some changes is the relationship between HR and IT. There's a lot of overlap now, more than ever. What advice do you have for HR leaders managing the cultural and change management implications of that convergence?
I thought about this for a long time, and the overlap between HR and IT is really about one thing: it's maximizing utility. We should design technology that people really get value from and they want to use, like the use of the utility of the tech, and not because it looks cool or it feels friendly to use, but because it does things that are really impactful. It does them really well. HR is in a great position to set that standard for the tech team, to expect that standard really, so that when tech and culture collide, The risk is that the system we're building gets built for efficiency and speed and productivity and minimum cost. People in that process get thought about as an afterthought. They should be the core. And HR can stop that by asking those basic and killer questions really early. So if we're going to ask those kind of questions, they should be about what helps people make the job more effective. What decisions will the tool support? What behavior will the tool itself encourage? And if the answers are vague, then we haven't asked the right questions and we're going to fail and we're going to get ignored. So at that point, we have to really think more carefully about human-centered design, and HR, again, are super powerful in that space. It shouldn't be about softening the edges of the tech or the tool or making the UI pretty and friendly. It's about the impact. So the technology has to make something meaningfully more effective or easier or simpler or clearer to use. And the person using it has to be core to that process. They shouldn't be bypassed by it. The other thing that HR leaders can do is really simplify that story. People engage when the story is really clear for them. This is why we're introducing this piece of tech. This is what it's going to help you do. This is how we'll support you while you get used to it. And these are the outcomes you'll get from engaging with it. So if we can keep those messages really tight, engagement follows. And the convergence that you're looking for, that's what it really is. If we build tools that matter, that make people feel included, we keep the communication about our intent purposeful and real. When you do that, any kind of change or adoption process becomes less painful and much more productive.
I like that. And we want change to be more easy to happen and for employees to be able to adjust more quickly or without resistance, I guess.
Totally. I mean, we've worked with a couple of companies specifically around change, and the element that they see as being most critical to the change process is the person at the center of it. If the change process is done to that person, it fails. If the change process is done with that person, you get a great outcome.
More generally speaking, what signals should HR leaders look for that indicate their technology strategy, whether that's AI powered or not? Could it be misaligned with how people actually work, communicate, and perform? Talk to us about that.
So this one really resonates for me on a personal level because I have to do this a lot, and it's workarounds. It holds up for me every single time. Every piece of tech, every company, every process, every strategy. You know that when people are exporting things to spreadsheets or are making backup documents or just doing any work outside the process or system itself to get a win, then the tech or the strategy that's being used isn't supporting the way people think or collaborate or operate. By doing this kind of assessment and looking for workarounds, you find the tools or strategy, the gaps where the job to be done isn't being fulfilled. But finding this out can be a real advantage. If you can find that go-to person, the person who has the magic workaround that everybody's been using, you should get them involved. Get those people involved in revising the strategy. Get them involved in choosing the right piece of tech. They're invaluable. They understand those critical needs of the user because they really are the user, and the user that's found the optimum outcome. So you want them involved straight away. I have a personal example of this. I'm not saying mine is the silver bullet, but anyway. In our own OKR processes, I have to use a platform, and I'm not going to name and shame them, but I have to keep a separate Confluence page to maintain that same data so I can access it at a point within a meeting or in a one-to-one on the fly. The process in the actual platform itself is so cumbersome that I just can't get to it in the time needed to actually update the OKR, and I tend to only use that platform mid-year and end-of-year reviews. So the tech that I have to solve the problem, it doesn't meet my needs. And there's a workaround, and because there's a workaround, workarounds represent risk. And in my scenario, it's small. Like I update on the fly, I update mid-year, I update end-year. But any regulated market or any kind of legal process, pharma, finance, law, HR, that's when workarounds become a genuine risk, and they're the best possible indicator that you've got a problem.
Great examples. I think it's important for us to really sit down and think about all perspectives, because if the tech we're investing in doesn't work for the people, what's the point? That's the whole point of why we're investing in all this technology and systems and processes. So let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller-Merrell, and you are listening to the Workology Podcast, powered by ACE the HR Exam and Upskill HR. Today, I am talking with Martin Jackson, Principal Innovation Manager at Insights, about how AI is transforming HR tech. So for listeners who might not be familiar, can you give us a quick overview of Insights and the Insights Discovery Color Wheel model?
Yeah, sure. So So Insights is a proudly Scottish company, and it's been around for the best part of 30 years. It's delivered over 11 million personal individual profiles. It's been used just about every country in the world. Madagascar, Malta, Mauritius, and Monaco are ones that we just learned about this month. Those are ones that we've already performed with over the space of the past year. And our flagship product is Discovery. It's a personality model, and it's based on Jungian psychology and philosophy. And it uses the 4-color model that you mentioned previously, red, yellows, green, blues, as descriptors. It helps people understand how they prefer to think, how they prefer to communicate, and how they prefer to make decisions. So again, one of my team described Discovery actually back to me as this. There's a quote, "Know thyself, it's the beginning of wisdom." And then the second half was, or at least to try to know yourself and try to understand those around you a little bit better. It's a really bad paraphrasing of Socrates, and it came from my team's marketing expert. But the principle's right. Know thyself, know the others around you. Understand them in the best possible way you can to adapt and connect. That's what Discovery is really about. But I think Discovery itself offers a really simple and shared language. People can really explain what they might need and how they can adapt to each other and how they can find less friction and flow just by leaning into those color energy type descriptions. That's Insights Discovery's superpower for me. It's a really clear way of making communication simple. It gives a really easy shared language for people to communicate through. They can really express how they think, how they make decisions, and what they might need from other people. And I first used these back when I was doing my MBA. These tools really helped me cut through the chatter and the confusion in some of our team meets. We had like high pressure meets, and it was all designed to make the interactions that you had really challenging at the start of your MBA. And then they put us through a battery of these preference and profile type tests, and conversations that were really tricky became really simple and navigable. You could sort of say, this is how I work. This is what helps me get this problem. This helped me understand it. And people understood quickly because they had this shorthand. And it made the team building so much easier. It was honestly one of the reasons why I actually wanted to come and work at Insights in the first place. It made such an impact in that process. I knew that it could do something really meaningful. And it helps people communicate better, and it helps people communicate with patience and with understanding. And that's what I really needed for me in those kind of situations. And that's where the value is for anybody else. You can use it pretty much straight away. I use it a lot when people just can't get each other. I take that moment to really think about what I need, but what really that other person might need more. And then I try to adapt and connect.
Awesome. And I think we all need more of that ability to understand ourselves, and then be aware to begin to think and consider of the people around us. And the more simple you can make, I think, an assessment to deliver information, I think the better it is for everyone, because they can get incredibly complicated.
Absolutely. I think one of the absolute joys about Discovery is the simplicity of expressing and understanding yourself, even just in 4 dimensions. It's the simplest model I've ever seen that has a massive impact.
So talk to me about the Discovery API and how it helps to ensure that as organizations adopt different technology, including AI and more digital tools, they help keep that human connection, engagement, and behavior at the center and core of what teams and people do.
So the API itself is just a digital delivery mechanism. Discovery, the principles behind communication, self-awareness, that stays to the core, but the API itself just gives us the ability to put that into new places. The easiest way to think about it is that an API is just like a waiter for data. Think of the API as bringing a piece of information to you, or bringing a digital experience to you. Instead of coffee and cakes to your table, there's a digital waiter. So let me try and explain myself a little bit more clearly. If you sit in a restaurant and you read the menu, you ask the waiter to come over to you. You tell them what it is you would like from the menu, and the waiter goes to the kitchen, finds whatever it is that you've asked for, and brings it back to you. You thank the waiter, and then you have your meal. It's exactly the same principle when we're talking about an API. You're sat at your desk, you're looking at your laptop, you're reading a news website, you see a headline that's interesting, you click on the link, the digital waiter fetches the information, brings it back to you, serves it up, you read the news article. That's what an API does. And our API delivers you discovery data in a format that you can plug into other platforms, into apps, or into websites. The API takes all the elements that are within the discovery profile, all the information around yourself and your own perceptions, your awareness, and puts that personality intelligence into action in any kind of digital experience. So we work with platforms for change management, I've mentioned. We've worked with platforms for coaching, for resilience. We've done one for seating plans in open offices. We've tailored chatbots to respond to preferences. We've built communications tools that adapt your writing style to the reading and preferences of the recipient. We've worked on hundreds and hundreds of use cases for the application of personality and flow. And I think we're really only just getting started.
What a great description of API, I feel like, and then tying that into exactly how Insights delivers those resources directly to people where they're at. So meeting them where they're at. I feel like so many HR leaders are overwhelmed by the number of platforms that they have to log into. And so an API makes it a lot easier if that data can be pulled or pushed into another platform that might be, kind of your platform that you spend the most time hanging out in or navigating data and information.
You're exactly right. That's exactly how we'd envisaged the idea of the API when we were very first thinking about it. People do have platform fatigue. And knowing that you could have that information plugged in just in the moment you need it, in flow, in the place where you live when you're at work, that's our goal for the API and discovery in flow.
So what are some practical ways that organizations can embed personality intelligence into the different platforms and in their digital workflows? I'm thinking like maybe onboarding or communication or different collaboration. Talk us through, give us some ideas to brainstorm.
Yeah, sure. So when I think about this, one of the things that's historically prevalent with preferences and personality type tools is that they're something you learn in a workshop one week and then you forget about by the following Monday. Like we said when we were talking about the API itself, for that kind of information and behavioral intelligence to really matter, it has to sit in a place where people can use it. In that moment, where it helps, it's about moving beyond workshop into workflow. That bit there itself is true, where the impact could be really felt. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is with nudges. We've seen this in one of the current use cases one of our partners are working on. Managers get a short coaching prompt before any kind of tough conversation is built into the back of their calendar and built in the detail around the preferences themselves and the people they work with and how they communicate best. And conversely, employees can therefore get a nudge in terms of how they frame a message before they hit send on an email. New hires can go through onboarding that's tailored to their own preferences and can inform them about their colleagues' working style so they connect quicker. And in those really early few weeks when they're starting to work together, it takes away the crunchiness and it makes it a smoother process. It takes out the guesswork for how people can work. When you can reach for that insight and apply it just in time, right when it's needed, that's when it's most impactful and maybe even enlightening. And none of this is theoretical. Thanks to the API and to Discovery, it's completely practical. It's all about putting that intelligence into flow so it supports how people think, how they communicate and act. And that little nudge can make a huge impact on performance the right way, pretty much right away.
As a workshop facilitator, thank you for trying to embed these things into the rest of the workplace, because if I give a 4-hour workshop or 2-day and I go through different pieces, I want the team to be able to utilize that after the fact. But I think it's easy to forget. So nudges and that embedding into the existing tools through the APIs are going to make it more easier to reinforce and encourage people to consider the tools that Insights offers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always think about them as like adding a little bit extra. So Insights can't be the very best at every single thing in the world. There are brilliant companies out there that do brilliant things brilliantly. But I always think there's an extra layer that could be added by tailoring to that person or to the personality. I think that tailoring of preference in every situation just gives that little extra 10%.
So looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of behavioral intelligence in the workplace, and maybe thinking about how Discovery API kind of fits into that, helping teams stay more aligned, connected, and performing at their best?
A while ago, someone asked Mike Krieger about this. He is way smarter than me. He was one of the founders of Instagram. He's ridiculously smart. He's over at Anthropic now, where they build Claude. And he was at a Y Combinator dinner. And they said to him, how will Claude possibly beat OpenAI? And this was the bit that blew my mind. He didn't talk about models. He didn't talk about features. He didn't talk about network effects. He said that any of those kind of tools could be copied. He talked specifically around personalization. And what he said then shifted how I think about AI now. So it's not about being fastest. It's not about being smartest. It's not about competing on price. It's about being the most engaging and accessible tool. The AI that gets you best will be the one that wins. It will be the Hoover or the Google, the verb for doing AI. You GPT it, you Claude it. That's what it will become, because it will be the one that's most personal to you, the one you empathize most with. Strengthening that human engagement connection that tech leaders are desperately searching for and that users are crying out for, I think that's something that the Discovery API can help with. We can personalize an experience using the technology and the data behind Discovery like no one else ever could. And Mike Krieger thinks like me. So that personality and personalization element, that's going to be the killer app for AI.
Amazing. Well, I know we're going to include links to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, as well as a way to connect with Insights directly if you wanted to learn more, take a test drive, and learn more about their behavioral psychology, because it is simple and effective. So thank you, Martin, for joining us today on the Workology Podcast.
Oh, no, Jess, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time and for your support. Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation on the Workology Podcast. A huge thank you to Martin Jackson from Insights for sharing his perspective on how AI is reshaping the world of work and reminding us that the future isn't just about faster technology. It's about smarter, more human-centered workplaces. As HR leaders, we're at a crossroads where every new tool, every AI enhancement, and every digital workflow gives us a choice. Automate for efficiency or innovate in a way that strengthens connection, communication, and performance. Insights Discovery API is really such a powerful example of how we can do both, keeping people at the center while scaling the tools that help them thrive. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another HR leader who's thinking about the future of AI and people development. As always, you can find more resources, courses, and conversations over at Workology.com. Thank you for joining the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Workology's learning platform for HR certification, recertification, and manager training. You can also check out our new HR technology marketplace over at marketplace.workology.com. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrell. Until next time, visit Workology to listen to all our Workology podcast episodes.